Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we're going to be looking at the first ever S Class Negan, who is going to be the next promo character coming to Road to Survival. And this is what he looks like visually, very reminiscent of the 6-star Payback Negan in terms of him being a ranged character, having Lucille on his shoulder. Although this time round he is a bit more geared up armor wise, not wearing the sunglasses I believe that the 6-star Payback character had. And I think he's wearing a duster here. We do see his avatar on the left hand side, kind of standard Negan, what we are very much used to as a character. So as it looks, just Negan looking like Negan basically. We'll look at his stats. He's got 5,228 attack, 3,873 defense, and 3,335 HP. He is an alert character and he is considered a damage dealer with that sword being there, and that kind of makes sense. His stat balance looks good for like your standardized damage dealers. This is of course with 30 veteran rings as well, so this is just under the sort of damage that Prayer has, but much higher than the likes of Arav, for instance. So we'll take a look at his rush, and it is called Something to Fear. It is a 76 AP cost rush. Deal 2 attacks of 600% damage, 1200% total to one enemy. All adjacent enemies get 50% slow for 2 turns. This character gains up to 50% of their max HP. So 3 things going on here: bit of damage, bit of control, and a bit of self-sustain. I kind of like that. That is really powerful, especially for a damage dealer. Obviously you want percentage damage in the hands of someone who's got a very high damage stat. This is obviously 5,200 attack with no mods, no weapon boost, no leader boost. That's going to get really high, and it obviously multiplies with these separate 2 attacks of 600%. He can easily take down 2 characters in this situation. There is a big bonus as well, but because these are 2 separate attacks, that means weapon procs will happen. There is obviously the negative of that. If he attacks a character with stun on defense, he could potentially get stunned on his rush. But if he does get a weapon put in his hands that has anything nice on it on that 3rd slot, it will actually potentially take effect when he rushes. For instance, if he has splash damage in that 3rd slot, potentially he could splash the entire team with a 600% rush, which would be absolutely ginormous. All adjacent enemies getting 50% slow for 2 turns basically means they're going to lose a turn to get their rush. Everyone who has a maxed out rush in that situation would have to gain 50% of their total AP again. For a 76 AP character, that would be another 38, making their rush go from 76 to 114. If you have a command, you can bypass that, but only on one character, so the most of the time it is going to slow down an entire defense team if you attack that central character. The sustain at the end is just that nice little cherry on top. I have talked about this a lot in terms of that being just a little addition that doesn't make that big a difference, but can actually be quite nice. And I could kind of see this character actually only having the first 2, and then them thinking maybe, hey, maybe just add a little bit on the top at the end, and it's just a nice little boost. It's not going to be super powerful because his HP isn't going to be that high, but it is going to be nice just to keep him topped up. Okay, so we'll test out Negan's rush here, and you'll see it'll be 2 separate attacks when he does it, and I'll do it against this fully decked out Rick, and as you can see, he takes him down without too much of a problem. 2 separate attacks, 600% each, is going to make short work of very defensive characters, and a character like Command Rick is extremely defensive, especially behind a leader such as Lao Po. You can see that Lao Po now has 50% slow, and I'm not sure if it shows it, but it does. Her rush now goes from 85 to 125 AP cost, as you can see in the top right hand corner, which is absolutely horrendous to have to deal with on a defense team, especially if you've already just taken down their command. So obviously an extremely powerful rush. It does get more powerful, like I said, because he can potentially put a splash damage weapon in his hands, which we will test out later in the video, where that 600% can actually use the splash damage weapon. That is going to be insane. But before we go on to that, we'll check out his active skill. It is Impair, Daze, and Gain AP. It has an initial cooldown of 2, and number of uses 5. Impair and Daze one enemy for 2 turns. This character gains 50% AP. So it's a little bit of a strange active skill because mainly it's going to be a controlling active. I don't necessarily see this as being a bad thing, but impairing and dazing a character means they basically can't do anything that's going to help their team except basic attack. Impair stops rushes, daze stops active skills. This character getting 50% AP means that on a defense or an attack team, they'll still be able to get a natural turn 3 rush by doing this on your initial cooldown of turn 2, you're going to be absolutely fine. You could potentially already have your rush on turn 2, depending on if you use Dr. Stevens or not with Negan here, but if you don't, you'll be able to get your rush naturally turn 3. You don't have to like be like, oh, I'm not going to do a basic attack, I'm going to lose my rush. You're going to be absolutely fine. You could potentially command him after doing this as well, because he's going to have his rush the second he does this. So it really doesn't give him much of a boost when it comes to anything offensive, because he would get that 50% AP pretty much just from doing a basic attack. It's just to control a character that could potentially be an issue, be it a revive, a damage dealer, or someone who's just about to rush. You can make sure that they're impaired and they're not going to be an issue for your natural rush turn. So not a spectacular active, but definitely not a bad one either. So now we're on turn 2 and I can use Negan's active just naturally. You can see I've also dazed Lao Po in this situation. She does have exhaust on her active skill. If I didn't daze Lao Po, Negan would actually take main damage by doing his active, because he's gaining AP from unnatural sources, from, you know, not his just doing basic attacks basically. Now I'm going to block the rush and the active of Rick here, as you can see, and he's going to get impaired and dazed. That means he can't do his active revive and he can't do his nice buffing rush. Now obviously in this situation, doing it on a command is probably not the ideal thing to do, but the reason I did that is because Lao Po's not going to get her rush. And it also shows that if I do a basic attack follow-up onto Rick with Priya, she's not going to get any AP, because impair means you're not gaining any AP anymore. So that's actually pretty decent. So overall, the active is okay. It's nice. You know, having a little bit of control in your pocket, just at any point you want to just control a character, is a nice little thing to have, especially if there's, like, for instance, a Pete about to rush. Being able to stop that is very beneficial for you if he's going to be able to pick up 2 characters. Now Negan does have a specialist skill, and it is follow-up, probably one of the most powerful specialist skills in the game. Once per turn, when this specialist kills an enemy with an attack or an adrenaline rush, they will receive a bonus action. This means that if he takes down a character with a basic attack, he gets another attack and he will gain AP from that second follow-up attack. And that is the same way it works with Arav. Very, very powerful specialist skill. And the fact that he's got such a heavy damage dealing rush means that he will generally take someone out with that rush, and he will get a follow-up afterwards as well. It will only be a basic attack, or he could do his active instead. So he's not going to be able to gain huge amounts of AP like Arav can, for instance, but it does mean that potentially he could be rushing every other turn. He could potentially rush 2 turns in a row as well. If he has his rush and takes someone out, he'll get a follow-up, does a basic attack. The next turn, he does a basic attack again. He's got his rush, and he could be commanded that turn to just go again. He could potentially get another takedown with that basic attack, and he'd be able to do it naturally. And one thing to mention about follow-up, it is definitely one of the most fun specialist skills as well. It has a lot of potential if you build your character correctly. Now Negan also does have an attached weapon, as we saw him holding in his hands. It's called Negan's Blocking Super Glock. Apparently this is a Glock. I mean, if it is a Glock, I think Super Glock is definitely the terminology that should be used. It has got 30% attack stat on it, which is great. A medium bonus to AP when attacking, which of course is the upgrade slot. You want to go for a very large or huge AP on attack here. Now the third slot special is very, very different, and we'll read through it. When attacking, a 100% chance this character reduces reflected and counter damage to 0. And this is going to be basically against characters that have reflect mods, reflect weapons, and they will take 0 damage because of this. A lot of the time, for instance with Priya, when you rush with Priya, some of the biggest counters to Priya is reflect. Negan's not going to have any issues with this on his base weapon. So if someone has a reflect mod, he'll just take 0 damage as if it was absolute defended. So to see the sort of situations this would work in, let's have a little test. So coming up against a duo of alphas here, when I do my basic attack on these characters, I can get reflected. As you can see in the mods, they've both got 1 reflect mod each, so they'll do a bit of reflect damage. When I actually do the attack, you'll see it actually says absolute defense over Negan's head if he blocks the reflect damage, and he has a 0 come up above his head. If that's because he has on his weapon, it is absolute defense on attack. It's kind of a strange situation, but that's the way it is. He can of course be disarmed, so I didn't maybe pick the best characters to come up against here. So if he gets disarmed right now, that would be, oh, that's actually very good. Now on his rush, it works the same way, because you'll see he'll do his rush and it will say absolute defense above his head if he absolute defends the and he did it twice. So you see he took 0 damage both times. Now, something I know all of you want to know is, does it stop payback damage? Now, we'll check this out, but something to mention as well is 100% to absolute defense. So no matter what, even if someone doesn't have a reflect mod or reflect item, when he does it, it always says absolute defense. He just gets absolute defense on the next attack. So we'll see. We'll see. Does it block? Oh, I nearly actually took him out. Let's have a little look. Does it block payback damage? Priya should definitely get taken out, or at least take some payback damage. But will Negan block it with his absolute defense? Negan does. Negan does block it. Unfortunately, though, Priya does not. So basically, I've managed to get Rosita to like 99% bide here. And I'm going to do a basic attack with Negan. It should make it so she hits her bide. And then we're going to see if absolute defense blocks bide as well. And it does. So bide damage is also blocked with his absolute defense weapon. I think if she had a reflect weapon on her and it procced, or a mod on her and it procced, that it can't block both. I think it can only block one or the other, and we'll test that out as well. Now, the easiest way to test whether he can block 2 or not is payback, just because it's easier to get the rush against Negan, and it is also easier to proc his specialist skill. Now, he has got a reflect mod, 38% reflect damage. If my Negan takes any damage at all on this, it means he can only block one of the 2. We'll have to see if the reflect marker actually comes up on Negan as well. We'll have to pay attention. Did say reflect damage. Does it do? It blocks everything. It blocks everything. You saw the red reflect damage come up, and it obviously stopped payback. So every single bit of attack that is reflected back on that turn is completely blocked. So Negan's weapon is very interesting and has a lot of nice usage, especially considering he's got those multiple attacks on that rush. It's very frustrating to get reflect modded, reflect weapons, you know, that sort of thing. But the added bonus of blocking both payback and bide, very nice. It would only happen, I think, though, if he was the person attacking. If someone else was to proc payback, he would still get taken out. Now, something that I'm sure all of you want to see is how it would work if he had a splash damage weapon in his hands with that rush, and I'll get that set up for you. Okay, so in the position against a full green defense team here. They're not spectacularly modded or anything, but Negan does not have any mods for my team. He does, however, have a offensive weapon, 35% attack, huge bonus to AP when attacking, splash damage, and he does also have team player as well on there. So a very nice weapon in his hands in terms of the amount of damage he potentially could do, but he is coming up against fully modded defense team here. And we're going to see what he can do. As long as he hits a splash damage on one of these hits, it should be pretty effective. You can see I've done one splash damage attack in the run up to this, and it did a bit of damage as well. So we'll see the kind of damage output he's going to do. And you can see he takes down one, and it's just a bit of extra damage to surrounding characters. It isn't going to be spectacular until he's fully modded out. You're going to get the best out of him. And all of these characters, you did see, I think, in the bottom right hand corner, Georgia did have her rush up, but all of them are slowed now, and none of them have their rushes available. So Negan, all in all, as you would expect, looks extremely powerful. Rush, active is pretty decent, even if it's not like in the synergy of his kit. It's still going to be very effective. The specialist is awesome. His weapon seems to be very, very niche, but at the same time ultra effective against these annoying modded weapons and specialist skill defense teams. And you could put a splash damage in his hands to get the most out of him. So potentially Negan could be very, very dangerous, a lot of fun to use, and I have no doubt that using this character will feel good and also sound good. Do tell what you think about Negan though in the comments. I think he is a very interesting character. I'm gonna have to think about it. That is the end of my video. Thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.